Joining us is Cathy Blakely, the Victim Services Coordinator for the TBI. She serves the entire state, so she gets to work in all four of our regions. Cathy, thanks so much for talking with us about Domestic Violence Awareness Month and really drawing a spotlight on what is available out there and that this is a problem across our state.
Thanks, Kelly. I sure do appreciate the invite and certainly the attention that needs to be given to domestic violence victims in Tennessee.
Well, let's just start off with there is still a stigma when it comes to domestic violence. Why is that, and what can be done to make it easier for victims to come forward?
Unfortunately, there is still a lot of stigma associated with domestic violence and victims wanting to report and feeling comfortable in coming to report. Oftentimes, our domestic violence victims suffer in silence, and by suffering in silence, I mean they have a fear of how they'll be treated, how they'll be judged by other people, or even the shame that maybe they've chosen to stay in a violent relationship for such a long time.
What advice do you have to those people who are dealing with that shame and that stigma and finding the strength to come forward?
The first thing I want to do is just to encourage anyone that feels like they may be a victim of domestic violence or interpersonal violence to know that there are people and organizations and services that are available, people that genuinely care and have concern and compassion for them and their families. And the first step is reaching out, and then the second step is allowing someone to offer support and encouragement.
For those incidents when law enforcement is called, what can and should victims expect from that experience with law enforcement?
I certainly hope that they will have the kind of interaction with law enforcement that expresses concern and expresses their value, a certain sense of compassion, but also that law enforcement will be able to link them with either an organization or a professional or an advocate that can direct them in the way of getting services that they need.
So law enforcement can be a direct link to services.
Absolutely, and it's part of our responsibility as well to ensure that our law enforcement agencies and personnel are aware of services as well.
You know, if you live in Nashville, you may think, oh, or in Memphis or in Knoxville, yes, there is an agency, and you may even know what the organization's name is. But for those who live in the more rural areas, what is a good resource for them to find help right in their area?
Absolutely. So there is a coalition, it's called the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. Although they're headquartered out of Nashville, they have access to resources across the state from Memphis to Johnson City. So they will host a directory on their website of service providers, a directory of domestic violence shelters that provide emergency housing, and then also some information about the coalition that offers training for professionals as well as legal clinics for victims of sexual assault crimes.
Cathy, this may be something that you're not able to answer, but I'll ask it. A lot of times victims will stay in relationships because of children or because of pets. There are shelters that often take an entire family or women and their children, but are there shelters that will take pets as well that you're aware of?
I can't speak to that directly, but certainly the Tennessee Coalition is a resource, and they may have knowledge of facilities and programs that will accept pets.
What are some of the questions or what are some of the answers that you want people to know when it comes to domestic violence?
In terms of victims, again, just to know that there are people and services and organizations that are ready and willing to offer assistance and to engage them and support them. I know for victims, primary concern is safety. And when victims often decide to leave a domestic violence situation, that can be the most dangerous time for them in that relationship. So I know for people outside of domestic violence services, sometimes find it hard to understand why sometimes people stay or leave and then return. But it may take several attempts for a victim to leave and then to be successful in their leaving. So just encouragement. A lot of times it's just an effort to plant the seed in the event that if they don't leave today, if they decide to leave in the future, to know that there are resources available.
What advice do you have to loved ones, to friends who may suspect that someone they care about is in a violent relationship? What advice do you have for them?
Oftentimes, a violent partner in a relationship will try to isolate the victim. So we certainly don't want to encourage that kind of feeling that we're isolating our family because we don't agree with a relationship or don't support a relationship. So I want to encourage family members and friends to continue to be a resource. Even if the person is not willing to, or accepting right now, or when the help is offered, just continue to be there. A lot of times just knowing who to call and when to call is a valuable asset for the victim.
All right. Anything else you'd like to point out or stress, especially during this month where awareness is being drawn on domestic violence?
Yes, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So across the country, organizations and support groups are holding outreach events, community education events, and all of this is, yes, in the effort to provide information about services and resources, but also to address the issue of stigma that you mentioned earlier in the interview, which is so important.
All right. Thanks so much, Cathy. We appreciate all that you do for victims across the state and for the TBI.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Bye.